Thanks to PlayAsia for supporting this video. If you want to support me and the channel and get yourself a 5% discount, use the link in the description and use the coupon code BLUEVITA in order to save yourself a little bit of money. Thanks for your support, enjoy the video. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution. This is post-commentary, and if you're wondering why it's taking me so long to get off the title screen, it's because I'm trying to figure out what the hell this is. It's an old man in an angelic body's chest cavity? I don't claim to know, but yes, this is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that is out in Japan at the time of this recording. Actually, it'll probably... well, it won't be out until like August. You'll be seeing this video by like mid-July, but... yeah, so it is a single player and multiplayer Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, and I don't like it. I've got about 5 to 6 hours in it at this point, and there's a few reasons why I don't really want to go back to it. So we're just going to have this video to take a little bit of a look around, and it's going to be doing things like going through a few duels and checking out most of the menus and stuff like that. But I'm just going to start talking about my personal experiences with the game because, well, I've got nothing better to do. Honestly, I've been kind of dreading this video, because here's the thing about Link Evolution. There are a lot of ways in which it sucks, but there are also a lot of ways in which it is fine. And I find it hard to get over one or the other. I'm trying to find the middle ground, and I've been having a lot of trouble with it, and it's why I've been putting off this video for so long. I've had this game on my Switch for like 2-3 weeks already, and I'm still having trouble with it, so... there you go. So here's the drill. The majority of the single player content is duels with the characters from the anime. It goes over the major duels of each important anime of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, of every individual one I should say, and lets you play them. You usually play them as the good guys, but when you win you can swap around to be the bad guys. And you can take in either a story-built deck or a custom deck. Now, there are upsides and downsides to both of these approaches, so I'm going to talk about the story decks first. Here's the thing about the story decks. At least until you get really late on into the stories themselves, the decks themselves usually don't have that much in them, because, well, they're trying to follow the anime, so they're trying to follow the decks that they have in the anime, right? So they need to have like a certain set of cards, but you don't get to see very many cards at the very beginning of the anime, so most of the time you don't get very many cards at all. You'll get like 3 copies of like 10 different cards, and that'll be the entirety of the deck. And the thing is, they've made it so that you, at least in most of the duels I've played, this might change later on, but in most of the duels I've played, they've made it so that you can only, they've made it so that your deck will always be good enough to win, unless you brick, which I have done an annoying amount of times since I started up the game, which is another one of the reasons that I don't like this game very much. It's because if you don't brick, you generally have a good chance at winning. That's the thing. Very few games of this that I have played have resulted in me what felt like a fair loss, because most of the time I just end up drawing all the monsters I can't summon and I need to surrender by turn 5. But for whatever damn reason, the decks just end up feeling too strong or just too simple. Too simple or too strong, or a little bit of a combination of both. So for the majority of the duels, you end up feeling like they're a boring grind, because you're just working on getting some of your more powerful monsters out and just wiping the floor with the enemy. That seems to be the major thing about this. They don't reconstruct the actual duel step by step, or do it in an interesting way that lets you reconstruct them step by step. No, it's just regular old-fashioned duels. And let me tell you, doing that in the very first segment of Yu-Gi-Oh! where they had all these crazy-ass rules to make up for the fact that the cards themselves weren't that interesting, because it was the first era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it wasn't bloody Solitaire yet. But the duels themselves aren't that interesting, and this problem does get more or less duplicated across the start of all the other series as well, which becomes quite annoying to deal with, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because I tried to do a few of the other duels in the other campaigns. I didn't just, like, settle on one for whatever reason. I was just on the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. I tried to do all the, like, or some of the GX and 5Ds and whatever stuff, and all those duels ended up being really simple. And this was actually this is actually brought up by the fact that I ended up playing a duel in, I believe it was the ARC 5 era, just for this video, the next duel that I play in this video. And it ended up being a duel with none of the special summoning mechanics. So it just ended up being a duel where I'm just throwing cards out and winning just by pure luck. I didn't really feel like I was really doing any strategy or anything like that. It didn't feel like I was being clever, it was just dull. And that seems to be kind of this game's problem with the story duels. Sure, you can bring along your own user deck if you can be bothered to make one, and we'll get to why that's a bit of a pain in the ass shortly, but the story duels just don't feel that interesting, at least not until you get to this point, where the cards start to diversify enough that they can actually make some decent decks out of them without having to repeat the same cards 3 times over and leaving you with a bunch of useless crap when you brick. But yeah, it's not that entertaining, and it makes trying to make your own deck a bit of a pain in the ass for one reason out of like 3. So when you're playing these regular single-player duels, you'll earn credits, and you can take these credits to the card shop and buy card packs with them. And you'll be able to see me do this later on in the video if you're interested, but you end up having to buy them in packs of 8 cards, which is absolutely fine, right? 8 cards isn't really that many, it's not that much to be worth worrying about. But you can only buy 1 pack at a time, so you have to be constantly hitting the A button in order to get 8 cards out at any one time. There are multiple characters that you can buy cards from that are easy to... There are multiple characters you buy cards from, and the cards are spread all over the place. So if you're hoping to make a deck out of a certain set of cards, you'll have to try and go in every single pack. And some of the cards are really rare. So in every pack, you'll get 7 regular cards and 1 rare card. And it can be a bit of a pain in the ass to get those rare cards, because again, you only get 1, so you have to constantly be pressing A trying to get all the cards that you want. This takes forever, and I found myself spamming away, because there are over... there's like 7,000 unique cards in this game or something, so if you want to get everything, you'll be sitting there hammering the A button for a long time, especially if you're looking for one specific card to add to your deck. Over the course of like 5 or 6 hours that I've been playing, I've been trying to build a Magician's deck, because Magician's deck have always been my favorite since bloody Ultimate Masters 2006, and I just haven't been able to do it, because despite sitting there hammering away at the A button for 10 minutes, I haven't been able to get any cards that I'm really looking for. So it just spends an absolute ton of time bogged down in this annoying card purchasing system. There's no way to get any individual cards. Hell, you can't even see what cards are where in what pack, because there's like 30 packs. You unlock them by playing through all the individual story campaigns. And once you do that, well, you've already spent like, what, 10 hours in the game, and you'll be bored to tears like I was, just because of how unbelievably boring the initial duels are. So yeah, fine. Say you've done that and you are starting to build your deck. The game's got a lot of cards, and admittedly one of the positives that I will give them for this version of Link Evolution is, or this version of the Legacy of the Duelist I should say, is that they have included all the previous DLC from the Legacy of the Duelist versions on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So the thing about the DLC profile, not the DLC profile, the DLC business practice in those versions is that they actually locked cards away. For example, my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card is the Chaos Sorcerer. That has always been one of my favorites. And in order to get it in the original version of Legacy of the Duelist, you had to buy the Yugi DLC, which was like $6 and added those cards. And there were a lot of other DLCs like that that added like cards that certain archetypes needed to really do well in this game. That kind of meant that they ended up in a position where you had to just buy the game and then you had to spend more money on the game to get the cards that you might have actually wanted. You couldn't unlock them in-game in any way. Thankfully, in this version, they have spread those cards around in the available card packs that you can get, but still, it means that it takes forever, and looking for any one particular card that you might want for your deck is going to be a bit of a pain in the ass. Because either way, you have to look it up on the internet, or you just have to be constantly hammering away at the A button until your money runs out, then come back later. Because even with like 40,000 something credits, it's impossible to clear out one card pack, and there's like 30 of them, as I said before. Another thing I do want to point out about this version of the game, well, is that they have the new Master Rule, which includes Link Monsters. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, Link Monsters are another one of the crazy summoning mechanics that they've brought in to actually improve the game, try to fix the balance of it, which absolutely failed because you can do some ridiculous Link Monster chains that I saw a couple of months ago that just absolutely break the game. You'll have like 6 monsters on your board, but anyway. So the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually works is that you draw cards, you summon 1 monster per turn, you use magic and traps to give yourself an advantage, and you gotta try and attack the opponent. If you attack something with lower attack points while it's in attack, the enemy loses life points. You can also attack their life points directly if they've got nothing in front of them to defend themselves. It's a surprisingly easy game to understand, but then all the other rules tend to come in and make things a little bit more difficult, like XYZ summoning, which is you just sacrifice like 2 monsters on the field that are like level 3, and you get like a special kind of monster out of that. Or you use the synchros, which have a tuner special kind of monster that you have to put out, and then you sacrifice them off the field. But then you've got pendulum, which are like spell cards, and can also just let you magically summon cards from your hand without paying anything. The new mechanic in this one is the Link Monsters, and this actually changes how the entire game works. You see, the way it works is that you've got an extra deck, which is where all your synchros, your XYZs, your any of your like special monsters come from. And anything that comes out of that deck, of that point, now needs to go into one of those 2 slots in the middle. You can only control 1 at a time unless you're using a Link monster. And it also means that certain decks, and by quote-unquote certain decks, I mean pretty much everything pre-V-Reigns, just kind of breaks in this format. Like this format here, like the format where they have you just playing like the regular game before any of the ridiculous summoning mechanics got introduced in. This format here usually does alright because there's no ridiculous amounts of summoning for literally anything, and that's alright. But as soon as you get into something that uses Synchro or XYZ or Pendulum monster summoning, the decks break. Even in the earlier on duels where I have to bring out like XYZ monsters in order to stand a chance to survive, since you can only summon 1 at a time without using a Link monster, because in order to take advantage of the second area, you need to have Link monsters pointing their arrows down to those slots. It's really hard to understand. Well, actually, it's not that bad. It's really hard to get going, is what I should be saying. But when you can only XYZ summon or Synchro summon or something 1 thing at a time, this can break a lot of decks. Even the early on story decks, I ended up getting myself into a really tight situation because I forgot about the new Master Rule, and I ended up XYZ summoning a really weak monster. Then I had the opportunity to summon another one, and I'm like, oh, I have to XYZ summon something else. So I had to attack an enemy to self-destruct and then bring out the other one. So I can see there being issues with later on decks with more powerful combinations of monsters that are just outright gimped by this and being nowhere near as fun to play, which will make the story missions, the story duels, that much duller because you can't really do anything fun. Like, I've done something fun here, admittedly. 2 Dark Magicians, a Dark Magician Girl, and a Buster Blader. There's no way he's going to be able to take this down, but yeah, it's still these parts are still fun, but when you get into any of the other stuff, the game just kind of falls apart. It doesn't feel like it was balance tested for fun for any of the other particular stuff, right? And that's the part that kind of sucks. I really wish they'd taken the time to make sure that some of these decks would still work, or maybe even reformatted them a little bit. changed up the decks so that it would be more fun to play them. Like, you know, give everybody Link and XYZ and Synchro monsters and create, like, maybe a whole new plot or something to make it so that I'm not bored to tears by the simplicity or just the gimpness of everything. But of course, it's Other Ocean. They're known for being quite lazy. They're so lazy, in fact, they actually put this game out in Japan first. They put it out a few months beforehand, which means by the time this game makes it out in North America, it's probably going to be outdated anyway. And the funny thing is, when they put it out in Japan, it actually is on the North American rules. So a lot of the people there are like, why are the rules different? Why are the cards available different? What's going on here? And Konami actually had to apologize and say to people, hey, you need to get a refund. Oh, well, we can give you a refund if you want it. And that is just bizarre to me personally. The fact that they didn't even take the time to make sure that the Japanese would be happy with it. Then again, they haven't exactly been committed to making good Yu-Gi-Oh! Games recently. The last one that was even remotely of note was Tag Force Special. And to be fair, I actually really liked Tag Force Special, despite the faults that it had, but yeah. You can tell they kind of don't care anymore, considering this is just an enhanced re-release of an older game with newer cards in it. Well, there are some other functions that the game has. The game definitely does have online play, but anyone who would play these sorts of games online is just nuts, in my personal opinion, because I can't find myself having fun in these games online, because you need to go to the effort of making some really, you need to go to the effort of making some overpowered decks in order to even stand a chance. That doesn't seem like, you might be able to go into free play and say, hey, I have this, like, Magician's deck that wouldn't have been good in 2010, but I want to play with it anyway, so, there's very little chance of that actually happening. And this is the duel I was talking about, where I ended up going into a duel where nobody, this is the duel I was talking about where I didn't have any pendulum cards, despite the fact that I was in the pendulum thing. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's a story beat, but I just got unlucky on that one, but there you go. It's a little unfortunate, I gotta say. Another thing is that V-Reigns, which is the latest in the series of Yu-Gi-Oh! TV shows, so therefore it is represented in this game. But for whatever reason, in this game, they only have 3 V-Reigns story duels that you can do. I mean, you can do them in reverse, so you're like the bad guys fighting the good guys, but the thing is, for the most advanced era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, where you would hope they would be able to show off all the Link stuff in depth as humanly possible, it just doesn't seem to happen. It's a little bizarre, I gotta say, just a little bit. What else do I have to say? They still include one of my favorite features that Legacy of the Duelist had, although they haven't updated it at all, and that is the ability to seal and draft play. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically you get either 60 cards and you need to turn it into a 40 card deck, or you take cards in drawing rounds from booster packs in order to build your deck of 40, and then you take them through and see how many duels you can win, and you get rewards at the end, and you still get to keep the cards you draw anyway. I didn't know that I had the ability to get the Dark Magician of Chaos from the Battle Pack Round 2 War of the Giants Reinforcements, which is why I was so surprised when I ended up with one in my deck there, but, well, it happened, so whatever, I guess I can't complain about that too much. Game literally gave me what I wanted. Why would I complain? But yeah, you can take it online and play if you want. I did try once or twice, but nothing happened basically. So it's just honestly, I'm not that impressed. Like, all right, so I guess I have to go over what I play Yu-Gi-Oh games for. I play Yu-Gi-Oh games for the single-player content. As I said before, I think going online when you play these games is nuts. I think it's absolutely insane to go to that effort, because of just the fact that someone can come along with a really powerful deck and just outright screw you. So I enjoy playing these games for their single player content. And one thing that I will give them credit for is the fact that they give you a bunch of challenge duelists where you can go and play like certain decks afterwards against them. But the thing is, it takes too long to get to that point. I still have to go through hours worth of uninteresting, boring story duels before I unlock enough of the Duelist Challenges, before I get enough points to hammer away at the A button for 15 to 30 minutes, trying to get the cards I'm looking for the deck that I want, and just generally building a deck, which building a deck in this game is fine. They've got a decent amount of stuff. I do appreciate the ability to look up cards that are related to the card that you're looking at in question. That's actually a really nice feature and I appreciate it, but it's just... The thing about getting to a point in this game where I'm happy to play it is that I've already spent so many hours trying to get to that point that I don't want to play the game anymore. It's left me feeling that I just have enough trouble appreciating the game as it is, because they broke half the rules with the new Master Rules set. They made it so that you have to go through all this boring stuff before even the remotely interesting stuff comes along. And their ways of getting cards is just completely and utterly dull and grindy. It just doesn't make me happy. It really doesn't. Then again, I'm the sort of person who really appreciated the old era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Design. Like, as I said before, Ultimate Masters 2006, I think I said this before, I don't remember if it was the last recording that I decided to ditch and go for the post-commentary recording, but the last game that I well and really truly loved was Ultimate Masters 2006, because it was the most down-to-earth progression in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that I've played ever, where the progression of fighting the lower tier guys, getting enough points to buy cards to make your deck better, then slowly moving on to the higher tiers, which would then unlock more cards, and then just, you know, slowly upgrading your deck, slowly getting better, learning the library, and doing all of the... just having a slow but steady general progression that made me feel like I was getting somewhere. I loved that about Ultimate Masters. Tag Force Special doesn't do the right thing with this, in my opinion, because it unlocks every single card immediately, and I can understand why they would do that, but at the same time, for someone who doesn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! As massively as say, like, you know, your hardcore fan, as someone who just drops in for a few duels every now and then, giving me everything makes it really difficult to figure out what I should be doing, especially when there's so many different archetypes and so many different people to fight and all that. I'm amazed by the fact that there's a guy by the name of Gong Strong. That sounds like his parents absolutely hated him. But yeah, the fact that they just give you everything and just leave me to wonder what the fuck I'm supposed to do with this gigantic pile of 7,000 cards, even making an effort to get the ones that I do want doesn't help me out a bit, and I just have all these other cards that I have no idea what to do with. And even then, it's better to go into the story missions with the pre-built decks anyway, because they usually have a decent idea of how to get you through, unless, of course, as I said before, you brick. So, yeah, I tried. I really did. I want there to be a good Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. I played like 20-something hours of Duel Links and only gave up when I legitimately couldn't progress any further, because they refused to give me any more gems that I could use in a relatively decent way, because I thought they were doing the right thing there, but then they went and introduced the power creep that is inherent to all card games, and it just kind of drives me mad that they let that happen to Duel Links, because the one thing Yu-Gi-Oh! Desperately needs is a good reboot, and it isn't going to get one at this rate. But yeah, the overall complexity of the game to the point where everything becomes bloody solitaire and you have to look through so many different kinds of cards in order to do that, or you just end up in a position where you're trying to chase the meta and you end up in another position. Oh yeah, just while I'm pointing it out, look at all the deck recipes they give you. Almost all of them are forbidden. All of them. It's kind of funny too, because in this game Raigeki is banned, Raigeki isn't banned anymore. They unbanned it months ago. I remember hearing about this. It's so strange. But yeah, it's just, it's either you look around in thousands of cards and try to find cards that you have, try to find any good cards that you have out of that huge pool, because admittedly they give you a lot of points, so at least you can get a bunch of cards, right? So it's not like you're completely helpless, but still, there is a ridiculous amount of cards there. Or you chase the meta, which again is out of date, because by the time this game comes out in North America, it's going to be missing some of the latest cards. So yeah. I'm not satisfied. Admittedly, I might have been coming into this game with the wrong idea. Maybe I should have just gone back to Ultimate Masters or Tag Force Special for proper single-player progression, but I don't know, man. I feel like they can do better than this. I really do think Konami can do better than this. I really do think that they could make a game where the progression feels proper again, and it's not just, here, take these 1,000 cards, 990 of which are probably useless to you, and make something out of them. Look, I don't really have anything else to say, and I feel like I'd just be ranting over the rest of the video, so I'm just going to stop it here. I'll let the rest of this play out. It's just me drafting a battle pack because, well, I felt like it, in all honesty. Strangely enough, these battle packs are, like, some of these cards came out after, like, Synchro Summoning, I think, but still, they still don't, like, include Synchro or XYZ or all that, and I can understand why, because I can imagine someone getting an XYZ and just outright wiping the floor with someone who was unlucky enough to not get one, but it would have been nice to see some updated things going on here with the draft packs. But then again, what do I know? Konami said this was okay to go out, so I guess it was okay. Look, it's alright, really. It's not the first game I'd recommend if you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but I mean, it's got thousands of cards, a fair amount of single-player content, and if you know what you're doing in Yu-Gi-Oh, you're probably going to be more than capable of dropping right in, making yourself a story deck, and just trying to get through as many of those Duelist Challenges as possible. But remember that you're going to be wading through hours of opening card packs, boring story missions, and stuff like that in order to get to the good stuff. For those of you who are new to the game, I would recommend you go play something like Ultimate Masters 2006, and if you're wondering what platform that's on the Game Boy Advance. You may also be interested in Tag Force Special, but that also has all the other extra summoning mechanics in it. This game might be okay if you want to jump in fresh, but I can see a new player opening up some card packs and going, okay, what the hell do I do with all this shit that I just got? Because it can be really, I can imagine it being really difficult. I mean, I haven't played the physical game in years, and I was thrown for a loop with all the shit that I have, and I have no idea how to start sorting through it. That wouldn't take me hours, so yeah. I am actually going to let the rest of the video play out now. So this has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.
Mm-hmm.